Give me a minute.
Announce that. I think they're going to try to steer as clear as possible, but the idea of $500, it's just really tight, especially because the digital version, it is essentially the same hardware, just without the disk drive. So I don't think they could mark it down too drastically either. They're kind of in a rough spot. So that's my prediction. $449 for the digital and $549 for the physical.
Brian, I think you're actually back now.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I was actually recording in PlayStation 5 exclusive 3D audio for this entire episode. So you couldn't hear me yet, but you will be able to hear me this fall. My prediction is $449 or $450 for the digital version and $500 for the disc-based version. I don't think they can really charge more than $50 for what is essentially a $9 disc drive on Newegg. And so that's probably going to keep it sort of right around where people are expecting it. That said, I do think that they probably would have pushed for a higher price here had Microsoft not, shown their hand So, but yeah, that's going to be I think the sticker shock.
All right, so before it starts, I'm gonna get out of the way real quick. So apparently PewDiePie builds Gundam as well. That's cool. So if anyone did see the one that he built, it was the Avalanche Exia. That's what I'm building right now. The thing is though, the actual base one of Exia that has all the pieces in here as well, minus that I think just a couple wirings. That's it. So I'm gonna try build obviously the base one before I build this. But yeah, so while we're doing this, just gonna have the PS5 showcase playing in the background, and hopefully, it'll be nice. Okay, got 3 people here. That's mad. I think that's one that I've gotten in a while. All right, let's go.
Forward to about this.
I mean, definitely kind of getting a sense of what the launch lineup is going to be. And I think primarily around that Spider-Man Miles Morales. Like that game is theoretically coming out in a couple months, and we have only seen one trailer from it from the June showcase and gotten a few developer quotes since then. So like, yes, we know what Spider-Man on the PS4 looked like, but I'm so excited to see what their take on Miles is. I'm excited to see New York in the winter. I know we've talked about that a lot on our PlayStation show Beyond, but I'm so thrilled to just go back to that world, that version of New York, and see what's up with this new take on Spider-Man.
Brian, what about you?
Demon Souls remaster or remake. It's been rated recently, which is usually the sign that it's coming sooner than later. That essentially means that it's ready to go to retail much sooner than I think anyone had anticipated. And so having that at launch day or launch window would be phenomenal, because I think they're doing a lot of stuff that's sort of catch-all for casual players and big market stuff. But I want like a big, crazy, tough, hardcore, awesome action RPG, and I've never played Demon Souls. This is the perfect time to play it, so I can't wait. So I hope it's there day one.
Nice. Janet, what are you looking forward to?
Aside from the launch lineup, I really want a deep dive into the UI. We have seen like teasers of what the UI is, but I want to see what it actually looks like in practice. And then I want something that I'm really not expecting. I want something that will floor me. Part of me wants Jack 4, even though I don't even want Jack 4, but I just want something that feels unexpected, a little bit like a whirlwind. This is a fairly lengthy presentation. So as much as launch lineup is important and we'd like to see maybe some actual more concrete gameplay from these titles they've been promoting, I feel like they have to have something up their sleeve to really wow us. I think they did such a good job on their last presentation too, that this is their time to really drive it home.
All right, now we're just literally seconds away. Remember, you can watch the entire PlayStation Showcase right here. You don't have to go anywhere, and then we will be live right afterwards, hopefully with all of our mics working, and we'll have a whole post-show and recap everything we saw and talk about all the best and worst reveals, and try to host a show. We'll probably scrambling on our various devices to actually secure a pre-order for this thing. Video games. Everybody, this is very exciting. Now, before we toss this, we've got just seconds to go. Let's go around real quick. What's a thing that hasn't been announced, just pie in the sky, that you'd want to see? Jonathan.
God of War, just the next God of War. I don't know if Corey's Barlog's trolling on Twitter means anything. I hope it does, but man, I just want to see more God of War.
Brian?
Last of Us multiplayer, or whatever they're calling that. The Last of Us 2 is essentially going to have a multiplayer thing, and that was confirmed to be a spin-off, a separate sort of self-contained piece of software entirely, and I think we're going to see it today. Fingers crossed.
We're going to see a demo of Last of Us Part 2 running on PS5?
I think so. I think that you're going to get at least a sizzle of some, sort of the big rock stars of this current gen and how they look on the next gen. Although I can't imagine some of those games even looking better, but I'd love to be proven wrong.
Nice. Janet?
Yeah, on that note, I think seeing like a sizzle reel of any of the big PS4 hits that are confirmed for PS5, I think that would be really exciting and also help pad whatever their launch lineup ends up being.
Very cool. We've gotten some rumblings that we might see Final Fantasy 16 get revealed, which is very exciting, but also I think a lot of people really just want to know when we're getting that Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 2. So we're about 15 seconds out. I think that's it. I think we're gonna sit tight. We're gonna throw to this thing. I'm just gonna keep talking for like 6 seconds, maybe 5 seconds. I might just wrap it up in about 3 seconds from right now. But we'll be back for the post show right afterwards. Stick around. Sony's starting right now.
PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
Woo!
All right, you man, enjoy. Okay. Wait, are you kidding me? Like, what the fuck? Stop already, fam! Jesus, I thought there was something wrong with me. Like, maybe there's something wrong with the audio. Maybe that it wasn't going through, but damn. What the fuck? Hello? Huh, let's reload. No. Oh, okay. I'm not. It's not the. I'm not the only one having this issue. So apparently, go down here. There's literally no sound, no audio. All right. So it's good to know that I'm not the only one that's like never mind.
You all know the target. Shiva's dominant. And only the dominant.
How do we even know the girl will be among us?
Our kind do not question orders, we follow them.
Sergeant, summon their icon.
Icon? That thing's a bloody mountain.
Our foe will not relinquish their mother crystal easily. This will be a bitter fight.
You should not be out of doors. We have discussed this. Come, Joshua. Your father will be expecting us.
I am Joshua's shield. I am sworn to protect him.
What do you mean you refuse? Did you not pledge your sword to our cause?
What does it matter? It was the Dalmex who drove back the Crusaders in the Battle of the Twin Realms, was it not?
Without the blessing of the Mother Crystal, we cannot defend our realm from the spread of the Blight.
Imperial Vipers. Do they really mean to invade us?
It's the Archduke's son.
The Phoenix.
Stop this!
On a fire. But that's impossible. The legacy of the crystals. Has shaped our history. I'll kill you. If it's the last thing I do.
kind of hyped for that as well. Just put all your... Give us fucking Elden Ring. That is all I'm asking. Give me Elden Ring.
Call to change out here.
Okay, now I'll take that as well. I'll take that as well. That is good.
I'm late for Mom's rally.
Expected at some point, so might as well. Alright, well, are we gonna see Peter Parker as well?
Check. You got the house key? Yeah, I got it.
We're gonna see Prowler. Are we gonna see Prowler too? Because obviously he's his uncle and everything, unless that's just in the.
Come on, we're gonna be late.
Is Mirror, is it lagging slightly?
Hey, dude, I am so filling your suit with snow. Are you still wearing your suit?
Yeah, you know, just in case.
It's gonna be fine. See, this is my favorite part of living in Harlem. Pop-up street fair, best food in the city, awesome music.
Man, this would be great for the last beat I was working on. I should get back into mixing.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So what do you think about Rio Morales? You gonna vote for her?
He is underrated.
It's still hard to think of Mom as a politician. She's been a teacher my whole life.
Similar skill sets, right? Corralling people, educating them, making sure they don't throw things at each other.
Hi, I'm Brian Horton, Creative Director at Insomniac Games. We're excited to show you this first look at gameplay from Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. Our story picks up 1 year after the events of the first game, and we find Miles' new home, Harlem, is in danger. Trouble brews while Miles' mom, Rio Morales, leads an election rally. A war between the devious energy corporation Roxxon and the Underground, a high-tech criminal army led by the Tinkerer, starts to break out. In this gameplay sequence, captured on PlayStation 5 hardware, the Underground attacks Roxxon, sending the rally into chaos in a fight that spills onto the Braithwaite Bridge, where the Underground tries to steal Roxxon's experimental energy source, New Form. Let's take a look.
Go, go, go! Whoa!
Let's not shoot each other, all right?
Okay, so this is some kind of cyberpunk shit. I really don't know who I don't. I'm just confused.
We're after the New Form. Ignore everything else.
Alright, she has a nice voice. Am I the only one seeing this? Seeing these frames up? I feel like I'm going back kind of insane.
Get rid of him. Then grab as much as you can carry. Keep him busy.
I have to stop this! People are trapped over there! I have to push past these guys! Where is he? They'll kill you! Don't let him cut you! Help! Help! No.
Thank you.
Man! Those people! They're trapped! I've got an idea. I need something they can cross. No! I can stop this! Just a little closer!
Magic, both beautiful and powerful, binds together our long history. That common bond we share is the legacy of Hogwarts. Now it is time to add your own story to these hallowed halls and, quite possibly, shape the future of the wizarding world. Every corridor, every portrait, every stone in this castle tells the story of witches and wizards who came before. Here you will meet lifelong friends and grow into your own magical abilities in the classrooms of the world's most talented professors. And while your journey begins at Hogwarts, brewing potions, taming fantastic beasts, and mastering spells, there is a larger world beyond these walls. A world filled with dangers you can't yet imagine. An ancient knowledge long gone from this world. That strange and mysterious talent you possess may be the key to unlocking this dormant power. Your potential is limitless. But what form will it take? The journey ahead will reveal what you stand for. The choices you make now will define the legacy of Hogwarts.
Okay, well, they actually do something.
Hi everyone, I'm Dan Vondrack, Creative Director at Raven. One of our goals as developers is to bring the game world to life unlike anything you've ever experienced, and the PlayStation 5 is making that happen. With the power of the new console, we've been able to significantly enhance the overall experience. From what you see in the world, to how it feels in your hands, to what you hear around you. In Black Ops Cold War, you will be transported to the year 1981, in the middle of one of the most dangerous times the world has ever known, the height of the Cold War. The following is a portion of the first campaign mission where you've been given the name of a high-value target linked to the Iran hostage crisis. But in true Black Ops style, nothing is as it seems. Take a look.
Qasim is out of the picture.
How long before we get Arash?
The team arrived in Turkey a few hours ago. They should be in position shortly.
Airfield's just up ahead. Let's go find this shithead.
Priority is to ID Arash before things go hot. Basement, check it out.
Okay, what the fuck?
Incoming truck. Left side.
Arash might be in the truck.
I sleep.
I can't make out his face yet. I don't want the fuck? He just iced everyone in the truck. That's gotta be Arash.
Hold fire. We need a positive ID. That's our man. Take him out.
Shit! We missed him! Can't let him get away! Get to that truck! Get in! We can catch him! We can catch him! Come on, get in!
We hope you enjoyed that sneak peek at the campaign for Black Ops Cold War. There are many more twists and turns along the way as you begin to unravel the truth, and we can't wait for you to play it soon. In addition to the story campaign, Cold War features the next generation of multiplayer online combat, and an all-new awesome zombies experience. Today, I have the special honor to announce on behalf of my friends at Treyarch that the PlayStation community doesn't have to wait to play multiplayer. Starting this Friday, PlayStation players will be able to play the multiplayer alpha exclusively on PlayStation 4.
Oh, real shit?
And for those of you that are watching at home on your PS4, you can preload the experience starting tomorrow. We can't wait to see you online Friday and through the weekend. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Black Ops 1 or some shit like that. Because that is exactly what I'm thinking. Yeah, so I see. Maybe I don't see. Maybe this actually looks a bit better. Come on, show me something. Show me something. Show me something worth taking. Makes me think of set.
All clear.
Come on, move!
Fuck.
Chris? What the hell? Take him away.
I sleep again.
In life and in death, we give glory. The bell tolls for us all. They're coming again!
Mia.
Quit being so paranoid. Long ago, a young girl went with her mother to pick berries for her father, who was hard at work. But the forest greeted them with a dark, cold silence, the bushes empty. Yet determined to find the berries, the rascal broke free of Mother's grasp and vanished into the trees. Mother's worried cries faded fast as the girl ran on, over vine, under branch, and into the forest deep.
And in death, we give you glory. Father Miranda.
It's just a local tale.
Okay, so I'm gonna add that to a maybe list. Matter of fact, we should probably make a list of
window
things
shop
I'm gonna
away.
get and not gonna get from stream. I have a feeling I'm probably not gonna be getting too many. I don't know. Oh, there's that stray game they showed. Nice.
You want out of a time loop, you gotta learn how it works. Black Reef is a puzzle, and each visionary is a different piece. Here's Igor.
I am a respected scientist!
I've done so many loops, I've learned to run circles around him.
Hey, over here! I'm coming for you!
I've tried taking my targets out one by one more than I can remember, but there is never enough time. I go after one, another lives, because right now, half an island away, a different visionary is throwing his nightly cannibal masquerade. Alexis Dorsey.
Everybody shut up! This is my jam.
Igor's a big fan, yet somehow he never makes it to the party. Something keeps him home.
Gold, you there, buddy?
Here's the invite to the party. And here's why Igor blew it off. He made some kind of scientific breakthrough that morning.
I did it! I did it, it works!
That he makes every morning. Unless I get there first. No experiment, no breakthrough. No reason for Igor not to drink his disappointment with Alexis. Now I got a shot at killing them both at the same time. In the same loop.
Hey, Wolf! It's time to hunt pink! Wolf! I'm talking about you, baby! Come on, Blink! A little help here!
8 targets on my list. Every one of them with grand plans for eternal life. To break the loop, I gotta break the rules. Clock's ticking.
And you just ran out of time. You keep forgetting, Colt. I'm not like those other idiots.
Oh, really?
Only got one name on my list. Yours.
That day, if our positions were switched, would our fates be different? Would I have your life? And you mine? You a demon? Kneel before me. This is power. Rest in peace. Devil may cry.
On menu, you use face. I can bet it's gonna be cool.
Did those fugitive morons burn down their own hideout?
It sounds idiotic, but that's exactly what it looks like.
Bad karma for burning down my farm.
Hi, I'm Lorne Lanning, creative director of Oddworld Soulstorm. And we're excited to bring you an all-new exclusive trailer from the game. Here, our unlikely hero, Abe, finds himself fresh off the back of freeing his people from the nefarious Rupture Farms. He thinks the journey is over, but soon discovers it has only just begun. The stakes are higher, the threats are larger, the obstacles are more devious, and it's all made possible by the power of PlayStation 5. Enjoy.
Not letting that Abe guy get away from us again!
Wait here.
Hey, why the hold up?
I could go for a sandwich right now.
We gotta get out of here. Come on, let's get out of here.
My tummy's growling. I'm hungry.
So
Gregory, your friends are worried about you. They're here with me. Please come out. Gregory, I may have lost my temper earlier, but it was just a glitch. It won't happen again.
Oh, sure about that? You 100% sure about that?
It's been such a difficult day for all of us. Why don't you come out and we can play a game together? It won't happen again.
Either do that right now.
It was just a glitch.
Gregory, be still. I think she's found us.
Whoa, what the fuck? Oh, but I think. Get a bit better, I see. Like, this is kind of what we're gonna show you.
Soul of the lost withdrawn from its vessel.
Oh, Elden Ring? Elden Ring? Yo, it's Elden Ring. It has to be. Oh wait, hold on. Oh no, it's Demon Souls, but still.
Withdrawn from its vessel. Let strength be granted so the world might be mended. So the world might be mended.
Alright, yeah, resurrect your stuff, you monster. Let's go. Let's go. I want to see some gameplay. Oh, shit. Alright, definitely is combat. but this is gonna be my sole reason. Oh, boss battle already? Oh, fuck it.
I shall await thy return, Slayer of Demons.
If you will. Okay, that happened. Back. Okay, that's got a copy. Oh, okay, so I'm guessing this is like courts and stuff. So, Bloodborne, where you at? As a matter of fact, Street Fighter 5, where you at? Tekken 7, where you at?
Can you kill something that big?
That I have yet to play.
Run!
My name is Marcus.
My name is Kara.
My name is Connor.
After all we've been through.
It's time.
Again, though, I won't be making the Avalanche Exia, just make the regular one. Definitely want that disc with no.
So now you know. Thank you all for joining us today and for being part of this amazing journey.
It was quick.
It's your passion as fans of gaming that drives us to deliver a truly new generation of experiences on PS5. From everyone at PlayStation, we appreciate your continued support, and we look forward to you getting your hands on PS5 very soon. To close, let me leave you with one more quick look.
Man says quick look like it ain't gonna take ages.
The time draws near.
Wait, Elden Ring! Elden Ring, please! That's got a move. Well, that was kind of expected. Okay.
You must prepare yourself.
No, I don't want to. Give me fucking Elden Ring, bro. Oh, that was disappointing, kinda, sort of. Okay, so who's actually going to be fighting?
Let's go.
No fear. My head's up. I stay strong. Forever young. May you live long. With perseverance, hold on and stand tall. Never back down with my back against the wall. Never hold me back. Nothing. I'm unstoppable. I'm fearless. I'm strong. I'm fearless. I am fearless.
And welcome back. That was the PlayStation 5 showcase.
Yeah, shut the fuck up. That's fine. I want to take this small dagger and just. No Elden Ring. Fuck them for that. Demon Souls, that was a positive. God of War 5, I guess? Also a positive. But no Elden Ring. Also, no Guilty Gear Strive either. Now that I think about it. Also, one thing I just realized. All one clear piece of plastic, unpainted. That's not the issue though. 4 beam sabers, apparently, and like, no actual beam sabers. And no actual beam effect pieces. Well, that counts, but no, it fucking doesn't. That's kind of disappointing. Okay, what should I put on now? Because like obviously I'm not gonna stick around and just look at these faces. Like look at this guy. Man's really happy. Oh yeah, God of War. Shut that back up, bro. That was the Elden Ring. Her face just reflects me right now. Just fucking done with this whole presentation. That's right. Yeah. I'm feeling that right now. But you know, I can't really complain. Like we got the prices, and well, not gonna lie, I'm actually willing to pay the full price for that. You know, disc version and everything. The only issue is where do I get the money from? Now, most of you watching know I'm obviously gonna like get that maintenance loan. We all know when we go to uni, and I can just get on that maybe, but that's kind of irresponsible. I don't want to do that. So that leaves me with an issue. Am I gonna sell my body now for this? Fuck yes, I am. I wish I was kidding. I honestly wish I was kidding. But anyway, let me just continue with the build here. I think I've got enough pieces for the face piece, the fin, back of it. These don't really count, those come in later. And I'm just missing probably a polycap or something like that. That on board. Nice. Wait, Genshin Impact? What's that? I didn't notice, man. I really didn't notice. But anyways, I'll keep going. My guys were trying to call me for prayer. I'm streaming, so obviously can't. I feel haram. Right, let's see, what piece do I need? I need a 25 and then a lot more bees and clear piece. A12 and 13. And if you've got any ideas on what I should put on next, so while you guys try to figure it out, I already got something I'm put on. Made into a gacha game. Oh, are you kidding me? Gacha? No. If you know me and how much I think about Warfare or King of Fighters War Stars, you know Gacha and I do not have a good relationship. It's like a love-hate thing. It's like I love her, but she loves me as well, but we hate each other because she won't give me what I fucking want in the game. And obviously, I quit playing every now and then as well. So. As long as we just go onto the Falcon. Okay, yeah, sure. Alright, so goodbye to these wasted faces. Channel. Alright, let's do that. I've got an idea. Yeah, boy. Is it coming to PC though? Wait, if Demon Souls coming to PC, why the fuck am I wasting money on a PS5? It's like, you know what? Still getting it, I don't care. Nope. We do not watch Pino stuff here. But you know what we do? Also, these little things at the end, so basically those little end things that are sticking out. No. That's what Gundam is meant to look like. This is going to be the order because we're essentially quick question.
Really shines through. Funding for Shaperillis is provided by Squarespace, the sponsor of today's video. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. More info at the end of the video.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
Kid Icarus Uprising is the most underappreciated game ever made. I know it sold over 1 million copies and stuff, and it received some excellent spin-offs, but ultimately this game does not get the respect and recognition it truly deserves. This game is the pure, unfiltered, masterful vision of Masahiro Sakurai. You might have heard of him before. He designed this game Meteos that everyone liked, and that's pretty much the most significant accomplishment in his life. Also, he made these franchises, so that's cool too, I guess. But for how much recognition this guy gets, I feel like his magnum opus has gone largely ignored all these years. And yes, I said magnum opus. It ain't Melee, it ain't Ultimate, it ain't even Kirby Air Ride, as hard as that is to believe, because that game slaps. In my opinion, Kid Icarus Uprising is Sakurai's greatest game because it's the most Sakurai game out there. What do we love about this guy? His insane attention to detail, his fan service deliveries, the sheer amount of content he packs into a single package, and his trademark sense of humor.
No, this isn't how you're supposed to play the game. Game over!
What if I told you that Kid Icarus Uprising delivers the greatest combination of all of these attributes, while overall being the best representation of this man's incredible genius there has ever been, or probably ever will be? Yeah, I guess I inevitably have to talk about why I prefer this game over the literal biggest crossover of all time that includes Best Girl Makoto and Best Boy Waluigi in the same game. Don't worry, I'll get to that. But first, let me sell you on this game on its own merits, alright? Kid Icarus Uproot has some of the most unique and enjoyable gameplay I've ever seen. The game is split into chapters, with every chapter being split into 2 segments, air battles and land battles. The air battles play out like a Star Fox, but with more interesting enemies and crazier scenarios. And land battles are kind of a combo between a third-person shooter and a hack and slash. Ranged and melee combat flow together so seamlessly that it feels second nature. The other neat aspect of the gameplay is the wide variety of weapons you can use, all of which have customizable attributes and abilities. You know that Sauron Eye Club thingy from Smash Bros? Well, if you equip that, you'll be slow but have insanely powerful melee attacks that tear up enemies in an instant, though your range will suffer. Or maybe you're a fan of that drill that's totally unfair. Well, in this game, it gives you a good mix of solid ranged hits and equally solid melee attacks. It's pretty fun. Dark Pit Staff? Yeah, that's a thing you can use for amazing range with a trade-off of subpar melee. Those shield thingies the pits pull up? 2 floating objects that fire shots that get stronger the farther they travel. You can use a pirate cannon. You can use tiger claws. You can shoot fire from your hands. You can be an anime swords guy. The sheer amount of variety these weapons offer is astonishing. They completely change the gameplay up and encourage you to experiment and fuse weapons together until you find the one that fits your playstyle. It's bonkers. Same with the powers Palutena uses to protect you. You can equip as many as you want that you can fit into this little box. They take the form of healing, temporary buffs to your stats, or gigantic explosions. Yeah, remember Explosive Flame? Instead of an annoying spammy projectile, it's this giant fiery ball of death. Pretty rad. Now everybody seems to hate this game's controls, but I found them really intuitive and fun. Using the stylus to aim, the circle pad to dodge, and the triggers to fire feels incredibly natural and enjoyable. I get why some people aren't too fond of them, but they just really clicked with me. Same with the 3D effect. Oh yeah, the 3DS has 3D. I think everyone kind of forgot about that over the years. I'm part of the 3%.
Take 5003.
I'm part of the 3% of the population who always cranks the 3D up to max on every game I play. And this game has some of the best use of the added depth I've ever seen. The environments are stunning enough without it, but when that extra dimension kicks in, these hills sing. The game's approach to difficulty is also fantastic. It's so good that you've been playing it already in the most recent Smash games. Yes, the difficulty slider originated here, and it's a great way to make the game more accessible to anyone looking for a peaceful walk in the park,
or a brutal challenge poured out of the blood of your enemies.
I still haven't beaten every chapter on 9.0, man. This game can be intense. Or it can not be that. It's up to you. It's like when Sakurai made Kirby. You can platform on the ground and fight dudes, or you can fly over enemies and avoid all that. That's probably riveting gameplay to an infant. But yeah, The way you play Kirby is up to you. Oh, and don't forget Smash. You could do no items, final only, Fox Destination, or you could do mega heavy slow curry 300% stamina, Gus Bellows only with a stage morph between Smashville and Town and City, but only on Saturday nights when KK Slider is playing. This man loves giving you the option to play games how you want to play them, regardless of your skill level. Customization makes games way more accessible, and Kid Icarus Uprising is the most innately customizable experience I've ever had in gaming. From the difficulty levels, to the weapon variety, to the powers, replaying this game never gets old because it's a different experience every time you revisit a chapter with a new weapon in hand. But the amazing gameplay is just the tip of the iceberg. Let's get to the real appeal of the game, the God Squad. Do Nintendo characters have compelling personalities is a question I ask myself on those long, rough nights where I really want to get into some existential dread about the nature of my existence and whether or not I've squandered half my life on silly fictional computer game characters made by quirky Japanese businessmen. I mean, you got iconic characters like Luigi, Wario, Dedede, Isabelle, Ness, Piranha Plant, Corrin. They all have distinct personalities, but they can all pretty much be summarized in a single word. Timid, greedy, gluttonous, precious, okay, plant, dumpster fire. Oh wait, that was 2 words. Cretin. Yeah, that's a good one. Some of the more story-based RPG games like Fire Emblem and Xenoblade have the potential to flesh out their characters, but the main franchises, Zelda, Metroid, Super Mario, not so much. Nintendo doesn't focus on fleshing out characters or a story most of the time. The focus is on gameplay above all else. And that's totally fine. But if I had to name a Nintendo protagonist that I feel like I know everything about because of how well the games have fleshed him out, I would without a doubt say Olimar. That's not even a joke. Have you read the Pikmin 2 logs? They're insanely extensive. I feel like I know this guy better than I know my one uncle, whose name, by the way, is Louis. Coincidence? I think probably yeah. But the next most fleshed out Nintendo protagonist is definitely Pit. He's super funny and a little bit naive, but he has an incredibly strong heart and his passion for helping people really shines throughout all of his interactions. We can see what makes him excited. We can see what makes him tick. He could be happy, he could be determined, he could be dismayed, he could be angry. There's more range to his character than not only most Nintendo protagonists, but most video game protagonists in general. He's an engaging part of a larger story, and the other characters he interacts with are even more entertaining. Palutena is a fantastic character. If you've never played this game and you only know her from Smash, what do you think her personality is like? Probably very regal and serious, befitting her position as a goddess, right?
I have no idea what he's saying.
He's like, yar, I'll make you walk the space plank, scurry dog.
Yeah, no, Palutena is a complete mad lad. It's great. She guides you from the heavens and makes snarky remarks about your abilities, but the relationship between these two is ultimately really endearing and wholesome.
Humans get frustrated, even destructive, when we gods don't provide for them.
Don't be ridiculous. Everyone loves the goddess of light, you know that.
Thank you, Pit. I do my best.
Even though I almost died, I've really enjoyed our time together.
Aw, you poor guy. You really need to make some friends.
And then there's the colorful characters you meet throughout your journey. Tough as nails, bubble blower, beater upper, Magnus.
Hey, if you're chatting with your precious goddess, give her a message from me. Tell her she's been screwed on a job. My world is on the edge of collapse.
Yup, get back. This guy's a jerk.
The wickedly talented one and only Pandora.
I wanted to get my driver's license, so I went up to the parking lot to practice it. But then it hit me. How am I supposed to steer without hands?
How'd you build a parking lot without hands?
Hard work and determination.
This British guy.
Right, because I care so much.
Your concern is noted.
I was being sarcastic. I don't care at all.
This lady who has an electric personality.
Tim, give it a second thought. Ma'am.
Uh-oh.
Did you just call me ma'am? Are you trying to start something? You're right, I'm sorry. You're much too young to be called ma'am.
Supreme superhero power parody Pyron.
Man, is that guy obsessed with the arm or what? Sure knows a lot about them.
That's because I spent a lot of time on Divinipedia.
Divinipedia? Send me the link.
Dark Pit. My edgy son, whomst I love. Seriously, all you uncultured swines who think he doesn't belong in Smash need to play this game. He's actually a really compelling rival who factors into the story naturally and goes through his own character arc, developing into somewhat of a hero. It's great. Then there's Viridi, the goddess of nature. I normally don't like bratty characters, but Viridi's chaotic, neutral nature and hilarious personality is such a great contrast to Palutena and Pit that I adore her presence. She's voiced by Hynden Walsh, by the way. You might have heard of her. She played Star Munch in 10 Titans and also Princess Bonobo in Avenger Tim. So yeah, great talent there. The characters in this game are really funny and endearing, mostly, and they not only play off of each other extremely well, but they also take any opportunity to poke fun at the game world itself. There is no fourth wall in this game, and it's delightful.
You know, tomatoes look an awful lot like little Metroids.
No! Stop right there!
What's the matter? All I said was that tomatoes look like little Metroids.
I can't hear you!
Hey, what's your problem?
This game universe and that game universe have nothing to do with each other.
Fortunately, the fourth wall humor doesn't overstay its welcome, since it's really only sprinkled in here and there. But suffice to say, the humor is one of the game's strongest attributes and gets you even more invested in these scenarios. Hey, how's about we talk about those scenarios, Kid Icarus Uprising has one of the most masterful implementations of a story I've ever seen in a video game. To fully express my point, let's take a look at a game I very much do not like so much, I must say, I do declare. Kingdom Hearts 3. I decided to dive straight into the Kingdom Hearts series with this one, and I regret all my life choices now. Hooray! The problem, however, isn't the fact that I had no idea what was going on in the story. The problem is that the game stopped for the story over and over. I couldn't enjoy the combat because I was being forced to watch crappily animated recreations of Disney movies I've already seen. I know what happens in Tangled, guys, and surprisingly, replacing the Stabbington brothers with an anime zipper boy doesn't change the story that much. Metal Gear Solid tends to have this problem too, especially in 2 and 4. Even though the stories are engaging, this cutscene fatigue really prevents me from getting as immersed in the game as I'd like to be. But I still want strong stories in my games because I want to connect with the characters in my quest. Yeah, maybe I'm a little needy in this regard. Or maybe these games should learn a lesson from Kid Icarus Uprising. This game has the story playing out in real time during the actual gameplay. It's easy to implement during the air battles since it's on rails and you'll always be going through the missions at the same pace, with the exception of boss battles. But on the ground, full conversations between the characters that progress the story happen while you're actually playing the game. There's barely any interruption to be had, which makes for a more immersive experience. Imagine how cool it would be if Sora had full conversations with Mike and Sully while traversing the factory, instead of watching slow, sterile, agonizing cutscenes. Imagine talking to Rose or Campbell while infiltrating the big shell and taking out bad guys, instead of spending 15 minutes watching floating green heads talk about relationship problems. Don't get me wrong, MGS2 needs to slow down and let you fully process the dialogue in a certain section I won't spoil, but a good chunk of the game could benefit by marrying story and gameplay in a way similar to how it's done here. And the story itself is really fun and engaging. The game takes place over 25 chapters, which are divided into mini-arcs. Chapters 1 through 9 are the Medusa storyline, which include a mini-arc about Pandora and Dark Pit. 10 to 14 are the Viridi arc. 15 to 17 are the arc where you put all your differences aside to fight an alien invasion. Trust me, it's even weirder than it sounds. 18 to 22 are the best arc in the game, which I won't spoil a thing about. And 23 to 25 is the end game. If you don't like a certain arc, it never lasts for too long, so you can get back into something that does interest you really quickly. And all these chapters have great character interactions and fun gameplay, so there's not much to complain about here. The story never takes itself too seriously at all, which is refreshing. It makes everything feel much more laid back and enjoyable, though there are some great dramatic beats late in the story that feel earned. It's because these characters are so lovable and you grow so attached to them that the story can make you feel things you didn't expect to going in. This emotional resonance is just the cherry on top of this wacky, delicious floor ice cream. But again, this is what Sakurai does best. He meshes elements that don't seem to work together or make sense and turns it into something strangely compelling. But you know, not in the sense that, wow, that snack guy is fighting Claude, is fighting Megamind, is fighting Band Joe. Or, wow, that cute pink Curb guy is fighting an Eldritch abomination. Kid Icarus...
Don't you insult Kirby lore.
Okay. Those are impressive tonal meshes, but they aren't stories. Yeah, Brawl kinda had a story, but not with dialogue and character arcs and emotional beats and so on and so forth. Kid Icarus Uprising tells an engaging story that straddles the line between exciting, funny, emotional, frightening, and just plain fun. The entire script was written by Sakurai, who took on that role because he believed that developers generally lack an ability to balance story-based gameplay hindrances with a prerequisite of victory over enemies. He wanted to make a story that jived with the gameplay, and boy did he ever succeed. If you thought this guy was funny based on the little jokes he has in his Smash Directs, then why haven't you played this game yet? Come on! It's at least 12 times funnier, and it shows what this guy can accomplish when he isn't burdened by making a new Smash game. Oops, did I say that out loud? Yeah, it's no secret that I've wanted Sakurai to move on from Smash for quite some time. I adore Smash, don't get me wrong, but I think other people are just as capable as he is in terms of putting something out of the same level of quality now that the groundwork has been laid out. Hell, look at Smash Flash 2. A lot of the most recent additions and modes in Smash games have felt less than inspired, despite the excellent additions to the roster and core gameplay. I feel like overall content-wise, this series peaked with Brawl, and no other game since has replicated the number of amazing modes and fun things to do outside of battling. Hashtag bring back Coin Launcher, Nintendo, do it! Do it. Ultimate is fantastic for battling, and there's always the potential for future updates to bring back old modes and make this the most tremendous overall package Smash has ever seen. But I just see a game like Kid Icarus Uprising, which feels refreshingly original, breathing new life into a minuscule franchise that didn't have a ton of stuff to work with, and I think this is what Sakurai should be making. I really do hope Ultimate is it for him Smash-wise, and after a long vacation, he starts working on another daring, original concept with the same wit and spectacle as this underrated gem of an experience. He notoriously is not too fond of sequels. He handed the reins of Kirby to Hal, he made every Smash game as if it was the last one, and he has stated multiple times that he doesn't want to make a sequel to Kid Icarus Uprising. And you know what? I'm okay with that. An enhanced port on Switch would be nice, but for the most part, this game is amazing enough to keep me satisfied forever, probably. I didn't even mention all the side content. Do you miss trophies in Ultimate? Well, this game has its own collection of trophies for every character, place, weapon, item, etc. in the game. That's insane. There are AR cards that were released alongside the game that you can battle with. I lost mine though, RIP. There are challenges to complete, just like in Smash. There's an entire online multiplayer component which still functions to this day, and it's incredibly fun and addicting. Honestly, this game is the complete package, and it bugs me that more people haven't played it. Because this is what the beautiful imagination of Masahiro Sakurai can give us when he isn't overworking himself putting a bear and a bird in a fighting game. It means the world that Sakurai worked so hard to bring these icons back to their former glory. But I want this guy to make his own icons, like he did in the old days, and like he was able to do with this game. That's what Pit, Palutena, Veridi, and the gang have become to me. Icons. They're some of my favorite characters in gaming because they're allowed to be fully realized, funny, expressive, emotionally complex people. To be honest, given the choice between watching my precious Phantom Thieves beat up Ganondorf, or playing a new game with fresh, compelling gameplay mechanics, great characters, incredibly inventive humor, and an overwhelming amount of customization and content for a single-player experience, I'll have to go with choice number B. There are just too few Masahiro Sakurais in the world. We need to make the most of the one we have and encourage more of the attention to detail, hilariousness, and imagination that made this guy so beloved in the first place. And that starts with buying this game. For some reason, it's still $35 on the 3DS eShop. But you know what? For the amount of content and fun stuffed into this package, it's worth every penny. Well, that was a fun video that took a year to edit. Don't ask why, brother. Don't ask how. I literally recorded this video in July 2019, but it just kept getting delayed. So yeah, sorry to keep you waiting. I'm gonna relax now by browsing Divinipedia. Man, what an awesome website.
Alright, shut up for a sec. So, I just realized something with this. No, a couple differences between this and the actual regular HGXia build, which I'm trying to emulate here. That GNYs, the things that are meant to be over here are missing. Those stickers, but also I just realized there's not much posability in the arm. Like, I mean, still got the bend, still got this, still got some good shoulder posability and that moving, but overall, Double Season 1 seems a bit. But that's probably because I've been spoiled with stuff like from Double Season 2, with Double Razor, fucking Quanta, wait, that's Arios, Arute, all these big up ones, but still, it's pretty good. So after we're done with the regular Exia, we build Avalanche. So if you can stay for that, good. If not, then sorry. Alright, what do you guys want to watch next?
Yeah, you. I'm Travis Scott. This is my McDonald's order. Follow me. Here's my quarter pounder with lettuce, pickles.
No, 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 no. I would not fall for the sensational commercials with celebrity name bait products. I would not fall for it. No, no. Yeah, I did it. I know. Shame on my family. Shame on my family's name. I know. I'm sorry. I had to get it. I had to at least try. But if I'm going to get it, I'm at least going to monetize it. That's big brain moves right there, nigga. Hopefully it's not copyrighted material or anything. Can you imagine that if McDonald's copyrighted this? You have our burger in your video. That's copyrighted material right there. We're taking all the AdSense money. Now, I've done a lot of things on this channel. Skits, reactions, henty reviews, poon reviews, gameplay, everything. You name it, okay? But I've never done a food review. So that's what we're going to do. My next journey would be an unboxing video with all different varieties of dildos. Yes, we got the Travis Scott burger. It's lit! No, that's literally in the title. If you go to a McDonald's, you're going to see it's lit. Literally there. You imagine an older gentleman ordering that and just say it's lit at the end of the sentence. This is supposed to go to battle with the Popeye's chicken sandwich. Is this supposed to be as popular as that? I don't understand what they was going for, but whatever. Wow, I don't even get, wait, what? I seen online that some people got a toy. I didn't get my toy. McDonald's. I want a refund. I heard there was R-Truth like toys in these bags, and I didn't get one. I want a refund. I don't know. It's looking kind of dry, McDonald's. It's looking kind of dry. Real dry. Don't really look as advertised, man. It honestly looks like a quarter pounder with extra steps.
Alright, that's all I need to know.
Go ahead and eat this.
Good thing I didn't buy that. Then again, you can't really buy that anyway. So, what did Ruben say? Alright, why you should play Yakuza, what? Ruben, you fucking... Alright, so just some context here. This guy, Ruben, has been trying to get me to play Yakuza because I bought it a year ago for so long. I mean, he's got a point, I should play it, but... Fighting games, man! Am I fucking crack? Alright, let's do it. Why you should... Oh, fuck. Yakuza. My guy, which one? Yeah, fuck it.
Yakuza is a series about hardship. It's a series about characters trapped in a system struggling to break free. It's about doing the right thing when the right thing seems impossible, about growing old, about forming connections and discovering what really matters in life. Of course, you wouldn't know that from any of the footage I've been using because Yakuza is also one of the most deceptive video game series in existence, a title of wild clashing tones that should not go together, but somehow do, and in the process, form something different and more. Yakuza is a contradiction, and Yakuza is beautiful. These are games filled with powerful men of strength and resolve tearing off their shirts as they howl into the night sky and slam their fists into each other's bodies in explosive clashes of will and fury, where massive underworld conspiracies threaten to consume entire cities and destroy the lives of every citizen in it. But these are also games of some of the straight up goofiest shit you've ever seen. Moments when logic and reason careen into the stratosphere and the tense melodramatic crime story melts into a bizarre Japanese life simulator, to the point that depending on what part of Yakuza you see, it could either seem like a cinematic GTA-like set in Japan, or a bizarre Animal Crossing where you can kick the shit out of people. And the truth is, it's neither, and it's both, and it is absolutely worth your time and attention. And to begin to explain why, I'd first like to talk about the very particular circumstances that led to Yakuza's creation, and the man behind the games, Toshihiro Nagoshi. 2004 was a difficult year for Nagoshi, as it was for many employees at Sega. The company had been in dire straits since the disastrous surprise launch of the Sega Saturn console in 1995, and had placed all their hopes in their final console, the Sega Dreamcast, as well as its killer IP, Shenmue, a highly ambitious open-world title in a time when open-world titles did not exist on consoles, clocking in at a massive $47 million budget, which was at the time the most expensive video game ever made. Shenmue would sell well, but only made up for a fraction of its cost, financially crippling Sega and leaving the company unable to compete in the increasingly hostile console market. And so Sega, the former giant who had once gone toe-to-toe with industry deity Nintendo, ceased production of the Dreamcast and declared themselves a third-party company, their only option now being to make games for the very competitors who had put them out of the console business. This caused morale at Sega to plummet, with many staff even questioning if the company had a future in this new age of consoles. But Nagoshi, a young creative officer at Sega who had worked on titles like Daytona USA and Shenmue, saw things differently. Now that Sega were making games for other manufacturers, they could potentially sell to a much wider audience. And so it was out drinking in Tokyo's red light district that the idea struck Nagoshi. What if they made a game aimed at adults that took place in the intense nightlife of Tokyo? And what if it had a level of detail and immersion that could let players lose themselves in an intimate open environment, with a deeply engaging story set in the violent world of the Yakuza? Japanese games had a complex relationship with violent and sexual content at this point. Violence against monsters and zombies was acceptable, but not against other humans. And the topic of the Yakuza was a complete no-go, which is why upon pitching the idea to the higher-ups at Sega, Nagoshi was met with immediate pushback and rejection. The idea was too violent, the themes were too adult, it wouldn't sell to children, and it was too Japanese to sell overseas. But Nagoshi would not relent. He saw real potential here. He believed in his vision and wanted to use the more adult themes of the game to draw in a new, much wider audience for Sega, and then engage that audience with a much more sincere and heartfelt story than anything the company had attempted in the past. And so the day finally came when Nagoshi stood in front of Sega's upper management and declared that if Yakuza was not a success, he'd resign from the company, never to return. I bring this up because I think it's interesting that a series about passionate men trapped in difficult situations did itself come from a passionate man trapped in a difficult situation. And also because it shows one other thing. Nagoshi is Yakuza. And I don't just say that because he looks and dresses like a character that could appear in his games. This man has been the beating heart of the series for 13 years, through 7 mainline games, 7 spin-offs, and 2 remakes. And after going through enough interviews with him, you can begin to see how his worldview and personality has bled into these games and shaped what Yakuza has become. And one of the most prominent ways that this has happened is in Yakuza's approach to open-world gaming. Open world games, and specifically open world crime games, have been one of the most lucrative genres in gaming for years, and it's easy to see why. The fantasy of being let loose in a city and doing whatever you want, unrestrained by law or reality, is a powerful one, with many open world games allowing players to rampage through its streets, robbing cars, shooting police, and causing cathartic mayhem. And what immediately stands out about Yakuza's open world is that it doesn't actually have that option. The option to commit mayhem just isn't there. Despite the fact that you play as a criminal, you can't attack people or commit crime. And this is something Nagoshi actually commented on in a lecture at Otome University, in which he was referring to the GTA series. I simply can't bring myself to promote the emotion that killing is fun, that committing crime is fun. And what I find so interesting about this is that by eliminating the way a lot of games let us interact with their open worlds through violence, it forces us to view the world of Yakuza in an entirely different way. You're not God here, you're just another person, which forces you to engage with the city like you would if you were actually there. And the reason this is a positive as opposed to a limitation is the very particular design of Kamurocho itself. In a lot of open world games, the focus is on size, large open environments that stretch on seemingly forever. But Kamurocho is different. Kamurocho stretches out for no more than a few city blocks. But the key here isn't Kamurocho's size, it's its density. Rather than having a massive world filled with empty space, every corner of Kamurocho feels defined and realized. And these locations are filled with different activities and distractions that make the city feel dense and alive. I've spent hours wandering around this town, completely ignoring the game's mainline story and just getting wasted in bars or going bowling or hanging out at the batting cages. I know that side activities are kind of a given when it comes to open world games, but trust me, Yakuza is different. It feels like there's so much love and consideration gone into each sub-activity and side quest. For example, check out something that happens when I was exploring the seaside town of Onomichi in Yakuza 6, and by pure chance I wandered down to the pier and got talking to this cool little fishing girl, which in turn led to a side story about their family business, which in turn ended up unlocking an entire full-blown new game mode, with new art assets, new gameplay mechanics, new environmental design, cutscenes and boss fights, including this giant squid, which I shit you not, had his own theme music. And if I hadn't wandered down to the pier, I could have completely missed this part of the game, like I did in Yakuza 0, when only after finishing it did I discover that there was an entire sub-game built around Pocket's stock car racing, with its own gameplay mechanics, progression systems, customization features, and storyline. And there are multiple of these layered, intricate sub-games per title, like Yakuza 0's Host Club side quest with an entire game built around owning and operating a successful host club, or the dojo management sim from Yakuza 4, or the fishing from Yakuza 3, or the baseball side activity of Yakuza 6, in which Kiryu has to scout and manage an entire baseball team that essentially turns the story of Yakuza into a shonen sports anime. It's also through these side activities that the game's personality really starts to shine. Everything in Yakuza's world has this overblown, overdramatic, bombastic quality to it. Even something as minor as Kiryu picking up a telephone becomes this big, extravagant show of will. Like, seriously, check this out.
Mush mush.
Yakuza revels in the irreverence. It delights in depicting serious men in ridiculous situations. What all this combines into is an open world that is at once immersive and hilarious. You never really know what you're going to see on the streets of Kamurocho, and that's kind of the joy of it. And it's fun, and it's weird, and it's exciting. But it also serves another purpose, and that's how the game's open world is used to flesh out its main character, Kiryu Kazuma. Kiryu is known as the Dragon of Dojima, a respected and feared high-ranking member of the Yakuza, his stoic, icy demeanor being surpassed only by his fiery ferocity in combat. And that's the fun of playing as Kiryu. He is a fantasy, a respected, powerful, very attractive fantasy, and the game's combat does a great job of making you feel like that. Combat occurs either randomly out in the open world or in the game's more linear story sections. And while the fighting isn't especially deep, it does capture the feeling of being a legitimate Yakuza badass, as you take on scores of foes while building up meter and obliterating enemies with Kiryu's creative and brutal heat actions. This, combined with how he's framed in the story, makes Kiryu feel like this indestructible Yakuza demon. And the final aspect of Yakuza's open world I'd like to talk about is how it takes that demon and makes him feel human. By eliminating the ability to cause violence and mayhem, the game ends up sidestepping one of open world gaming's biggest problems. A lot of open world games want to give us as much freedom as possible, while also asking us to empathize with its protagonist and story. Which is a problem if in between story sequences we're using that same character avatar to run down pedestrians, which creates this immersion-breaking separation between the player's actions and the game's narrative. But in Yakuza, that separation doesn't exist. While Kiryu will defend himself if attacked, he would never attack an innocent person, therefore that option is not available to us. But this also means that every action we can take is in turn something Kiryu would actually do, and it's here we start to see a very different side of the Dragon of Dojima. Kiryu is this indestructible Yakuza badass, but he's also someone who just likes to relax in his local cat cafe, who gets way too into stock car racing, enjoys a passionate round of karaoke, and who hangs out in chat rooms while typing like an idiot. But where the game takes this further is in its many sub-stories, in which Kiryu meets one of the city's usually pretty strange inhabitants and helps them with some personal issue they face. And rather than just feeling like standard side quests, these are actually a lot of fun, either playing up Kiryu's awkwardness by dropping him in an uncomfortable situation, or just being genuinely heartfelt. And it's through these activities we get to know the goofier, more intimate side of the hardened Yakuza legend, and it humanizes Kiryu in a way that only video games can really do, as by exploring and engaging in Yakuza's open world, you're coming to know the subtleties of Kiryu's personality. The other advantage of this is that when we do actually engage with the game's story, we're already invested because we already care about Kiryu. Most of the plots of the Yakuza games follow the same basic formula. Kiryu, or one of the other series protagonists, becomes involved in some massive Yakuza conspiracy over either land, money, or in several cases, a small child. And from here, we watch them punch their way through entire buildings of enemy Yakuza, usually culminating in a scene where two men derobe and wrestle until one stops being evil. The quality of the plots varies a lot from game to game, but one thing that stays consistent is the level of visual presentation. The Yakuza games, and specifically their cutscenes, are gorgeous. Even on older hardware, everything from the character models to the facial animation to the camera work and lighting are leveraged to convey a palpable sense of tension and emotion. For example, check out this scene from Yakuza 6 where Kiryu meets new character Somiya. And watch how much drama the game squeezes from this brief exchange and how much it says about their relationship conveyed purely through editing, shot composition, and sound design. This scene shows something else also that's core to this series, and that is the conflict that forms between Kiryu and the other members of the Yakuza. And that's a conflict rooted deep in Kiryu as a character. What I think is so interesting about Kiryu as a protagonist of these games specifically is that the same philosophy that drives the gameplay of Yakuza's open world is also what drives Kiryu as a character. And if the idea of being opposed to crime and murder sounds like a conflict of interest for a professional criminal Yakuza, oh boy is it. There is in Japan this super romantic idea of what being a Yakuza is. Despite the fact that they are a known criminal organization, public opinion on the Yakuza is mixed, with many people seeing them as criminals who keep crime clean, who keep more volatile groups like the Chinese triads in check. And a big part of this is down to the Yakuza's own efforts. They frequently try and position themselves as a positive to Japanese society, doing things like contributing to the relief effort in Japan in times of crisis, as they did in the 2011 triple meltdown of the Fukushima power plants, or the 1995 Kobe earthquake. Actions like this mean it's very easy to get a romanticized view of the Yakuza, to see them as modern-day outlaw samurais, whose means may be questionable but ultimately have Japan's best interest at heart. This is the traditional, idealized view of the Yakuza, and this view is shared by Kiryu. To him, being a Yakuza means being strong enough to stand outside society's laws and forge your own path through life, and having the will and conviction to do what only you believe is right. The problem with this ideology, though, can be revealed with a quick Wikipedia search. The Yakuza have been involved in everything from human trafficking to dogfighting to high-level government corruption to even open gang warfare that spilled onto the streets of Tokyo with innocent lives lost in the crossfire. This is the violent reality of the Yakuza, and it's that violence that is embodied by many of the characters surrounding Kiryu. Kiryu is at heart a good person, but he's part of an organization that surrounds him with evil people. Every character in Yakuza has their own distinctive worldview and philosophy on what it means to be a Yakuza, and it's these ideologies that drive Yakuza's more brutal encounters and what keeps these conflicts so interesting. I want to return to Somiya for a moment. If that cutscene from earlier wasn't indication enough, there comes a point in the story where Somiya and Kiryu have a showdown. Showdowns in Yakuza tend to coincide with the major beats of the story, and are usually preceded by both characters ripping off their suit jackets and bearing their tattoos before beating the living soul out of one another. And the tattoos specifically are important. These are the physical embodiment of what it is to be a Yakuza to these characters, with each carrying personal significance to the character that bears them. Like, take Kiryu's dragon, for example. The dragon is the undefeatable Lord of the Heavens, expressing his own strength and commitment to his own freedom. Or Nishiki's koi, the fish of legend that swims up the waterfall in order to one day become a dragon, marking his desire to surpass Kiryu. These are the marks of the Yakuza way of life and the ultimate dedication to its values. Which is why it's so shocking when Somiya does not have one. He sees the tattoos as an outdated practice of a bygone era, and he is the cold new generation of Yakuza, divorced from the idea of tradition and honor, focused only on acquiring power. This frames the ensuing battle between the two as less a straight-up fistfight and more a clash of ideologies. Even completely divorced from the plot, you can see how these two characters would take issue with each other. With Kiryu's idealized version of what it means to be a Yakuza against Somiya's cold, emotionless reality of what being a modern-day Yakuza actually is. It's setups like this that gives these violent brawls a real emotional weight, as each character struggles to prove their resolve and justify their own way of living through sheer physical force. And they're brutal and they're exciting, but there's also a kind of sadness to them too, and one that grows more prominent as the games go on. Later on in Yakuza, the constant fighting starts to take its toll on Kiryu, who eventually becomes disillusioned with his underworld lifestyle and decides to walk away and start a new peaceful existence with his adoptive daughter, Haruka. But there's an issue there. Kiryu can't help himself. To him, being a Yakuza is something you're born as and not something you become, and he just doesn't fit into any other corner of society. And so over and over, he gets drawn back into these conflicts, trapped between his former life as a Yakuza and his desire to live a peaceful existence with his family. And this is the struggle that plays out over the course of the series. I feel like at this point it's worth noting that we've gone from talking about goofy octopus hunting hijinks to a story where broken people repeatedly crash into each other in a failed attempt to make progress. Yakuza is tragic and hilarious, but life is tragic and hilarious. And it's when these two sides begin to bleed together that the games start to form something earnest and more. I want to talk about a moment from Yakuza 0 that really hammered this home for me. It's the point in the story where Kiryu has gotten himself into a lot of trouble, to the point that his best friend and former Yakuza running buddy Nishiki takes Kiryu on a car ride so the two can escape Kamurocho and let the heat die down. Nishiki and Kiryu grew up in the same orphanage and have become kind of brothers to each other. And throughout Zero, you've explored the town with Nishiki, you've gone drinking with him, he's helped you pick out suits, and for a while, the two friends just drive in a comfortable silence. Until they stop at, well, nowhere. Kiryu gets out of the car and Nishiki offers him a cigarette, which Kiryu takes a slow, steady inhale of, before finally asking Nishiki what exactly he's doing. And Nishiki, through tears, tells Kiryu that this is the kindest, most painless end Kiryu could hope to meet at this point. Nishiki doesn't want to kill Kiryu, but he also knows the far more sadistic end Kiryu will meet at the hands of the lieutenants. And it's a real heartbreaker of a scene, delivered with all the mood and weight these games are so adept at. But as I was watching it, all I could think about was this really stupid moment from earlier in the game, When Nishiki and Kiryu were singing this dumb karaoke track and the whole scene transformed into this 80s hair metal style music video, and how fun and weird and silly it seemed at the time, and how now in hindsight that moment feels nearly obscenely tragic. How the reality of who they are and what they do has caught up with them, and it feels real and weird and sad. And it's a moment that sums up why I love these games. By taking joy in the little moments and letting us just get to know these characters through its silly open worlds and side quests, it makes the journey they ultimately go on and the hardships they face feel oddly real and human. And I think that's really cool. I think that's something to be celebrated. I hope if I've done my job right here, you're at least a little intrigued about this series, which games to play and where you should start. But the truth is, I think all this series is worth playing. Maybe not one after the other unless you have 300 hours to kill, but if you need a place to start, I'd really recommend Yakuza 0. The game is a prequel taking place 20 years before the events of Yakuza 1, and it has arguably the best story, combat, and gameplay systems out of any of the games. But possibly its biggest selling point is its second playable character, Goro Majima. Majima is Kiryu's psychotic and dangerous rival, eventually turned ally of the series, and he's this kind of fascinating wildcard in the world of Yakuza, the total opposite of Kiryu in nearly every respect. And so imagine my shock when the opening of Yakuza 0 depicts my eye-patched brethren as a diligent, buttoned-up manager of a successful cabaret club, and watching the waterfalls of shit he has to wade through over the course of the game, and how it gradually transforms him into the feared mad dog of Shimano he becomes for the rest of the series. In a weirdly powerful and sad story about just living life on your own terms and being who you've gotta be. One that had me weeping like a small weak child by the time the credits rolled. The other advantage of starting at 0 is that this will also position you perfectly at the start of Kiryu's story, and from here you can watch him go from a young, inexperienced Yakuza thug in a cheap suit, to the legendary Dragon of Dojima, to just a man trying to outrun his past and struggling to start again, in a story that spans 7 games and 30 years. Over the course of which it never stops feeling like it has something to say, in a narrative that shows life at its most small scale and silly, as well as its most brutal and tragic, and the oddly human feeling that comes when those two worlds overlap. And I think something that unique and special could only come from a single passionate vision. Which is why I'm so glad that Nagoshi fought through Sega's dark age and made his vision a reality. And, of course, why you should play Yakuza. Hey, thanks for watching the video. I really hope you had a good time. I got a little announcement, and that is that I'm going to be a special guest at this year's Con Bravo in Toronto. So if you're in the area, do come on down and we'll do photos and signings and it'll be a good time. I want to give a huge shout out to the Wolfpack over on Patreon. And once again, I love you guys and thank you for letting me do things like this. And this week especially, I'd like to thank Hunter K. Jallo, Austin J. Dubby, The Proletariat, Jay Roos, Warlord Squirrel, Aki Dearest, Samurai Sushi, and RoboKai Drank a Beer Once. If you'd like to hear me talk more about Yakuza, you can do so over on the Let's Fight a Boss video game podcast, or you can come find me on Twitter at iPatchWolf. Friends, as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.
Testing. Can you hear my voice? My guy. I'm addressing Ruben here. I'm just gonna say, yeah. Yeah.
Being a programmer, one of my dreams has always been to create an original video game, something that nobody in the industry has done before. After seeing Spore, I became intrigued. Here was an attempt at putting people in control over a universe. After looking at what made video games so popular, I realized the main aspect was control. People in their daily lives have no control over their environment. They are told what to do, where to go, and how to live. Their jobs consist of standing or sitting somewhere until it's 5 p.m. and they're allowed to head back home. It's no mystery they're unhappy. For many people, video games are an escape to a world where they are in control, or live exciting fake lives filled with adventure. The aspect of control is found in strategy games, the adventure and role-playing games generally. I looked at games like The Sims and noticed what made them so popular is not just the illusion of control, but the degree of control. You have complete control over people's lives. Before The Sims, there was Sim Earth, a game in which you do not control individual people, but an entire Earth. I came to the conclusion that I had to develop a game similar to Spore, in which the player subtly guides evolution. What caused Spore to be such a failure is the lack of realistic control people had. It hardly resembled evolution. To do this, I began by generating a physics system. I know little of physics, but decided to study it, and tried to create a simplified version in which certain particles can interact, in specific manners. When it comes down to it, physics is simply complex mathematics. I simulated energy and matter, and created a simple system, with the sun emitting energy, circled by a planet catching said energy. I decided to create simple basic cells from scratch that were hard-coded, so to speak, in the system I was designing. They lived off the energy emitted by the sun, and had a genetic code that coded the substances produced by the cells. I guess you could call them my eukaryotes. My world, within a few minutes, would always fill with these cells, after which they would mutate, and the most efficient cell in converting energy from the sun into useful substances for division would survive. It was very boring, but it worked, I guess. I decided to expand the physics system, and forced the cells to create waste products that were toxic and would kill them. I noticed that some cells responded to this by producing less waste, others responded by producing something to emit the waste, yet others developed chemicals to clean up the waste products. However, I noticed something fascinating. Running the simulation for a few centuries, a few minutes in real life, created cells that made massive amounts of specific waste products on purpose. I noticed that other cells died as a result of this, to which the other cells responded by usurping the building blocks they had created from energy. The first predators were born. With the first predators, diversity in this little world rapidly increased. Some grew a response to flee when they encountered these toxins, others grew resistance to them. The ones that grew resistance would eventually grow to utilize the toxins produced. Eventually, I noticed something interesting. The cells that escaped from the toxin grouped up with the cells that utilized the toxins. They stayed close together and helped each other. Eventually, these types of cells would attach to one another. They formed a weird symbiosis, where the cell that would normally flee would now move towards places where the toxins are, and the other cell would consume the toxins and provide the mover with some of the energy. Without going into too much detail, I became very excited and decided to let this simulation run during the morning. I had stayed up until 5 a.m. while I went to bed. When I woke up around 11, I noticed the world I'd created had changed and was barely recognizable. Massive plant-like structures grew in this world, consumed by other organisms that ate these plants. However, looking at the log, I noticed that the world hadn't changed much in the past 2 hours or so. I had reached another stasis point, where the simplicity of the simulation prevented more complex life from evolving. I expanded the system by breaking up energy into different types, with different wavelengths that were absorbed to different degrees by different molecules. I implemented vibrations in the air and created an improved simulation of weight, and made some more minor tweaks. This caused the simulation to run slower, of course, but it was worth the sacrifice. I stayed around the whole day watching the simulation in excitement and playing with it, as it was incredibly addicting. Complex organisms evolved that cooperated. Plants that depended on each other, or attracted predators that ate the horrible-looking creatures that ate from them. I had fun, and noticed that some creatures evolved warning calls. This means that if they noticed a predator, they would issue a sound, and all others of their kind would flee into holes they had dug into the earth. Others evolved mating calls. I decided to have some fun. I made a dump tool, allowing to dump specific organisms on the planet, and wrote my name with it. I created 10 meteorites and dumped them onto a piece of land to create an island, because I wanted to see whether the animals stuck on both sides would evolve in different directions. I made a smiley face with volcano eruptions. By that time, I realized I'd stayed up until 5 a.m. again, as I heard the birds outside. I felt tired again, and woke up at 1 p.m. or so. When I looked at my simulation again, I felt a sense of shock. Different groups of animals of one species had made statues with stones, some in the form of a smiley face, some in the form of my name. I didn't know why they were doing this or how. What I did notice is that they would attack each other from time to time. I didn't know what to do with it, but I concluded that these organisms must have somehow noticed that the smiley face and the name I'd written were special. The fighting disturbed me, and so I decided to create a massive mountain ridge through volcano eruptions and separate the two groups. By this time, changes were happening so fast compared to earlier. While I had to spend a night sleeping to see tribes evolve in my simulation, while I was getting something to eat or take a break, I would notice the tribesmen wearing different styles of clothing or having changed their type of dwelling. Their numbers were also continually increasing. At some point, I noticed the creatures began making their own symbols on the ground, and no longer just copying mine. Most of the symbols seemed random and unintelligible to me, but one stood out. The organisms had created a symbol that resembled them, a small circle with a square beneath it. Within the square, a dot could be found in the center. This was meant to symbolize the visual organs of the creatures, as the creatures had two visual organs, one in the front of its body and one in the back. In the square, other sensory and reproductive organs were symbolized. Next to the circle on top of the square could be seen something resembling a drawing of a fork. Two of these forks had been painted in opposite directions, and next to that, the smiley face could be seen. I realized something. They were not communicating towards each other. They were trying to communicate to something out there. My meddling in their landscape had somehow made them realize that something powerful was out there, capable of changing their world. I wondered whether symbols like Stonehenge and the pyramids in my world could be signs of primitive people trying to do the same, begging their creator or overseer to initiate contact with them. However, one thing was undeniable by now. These creatures realized there's something out there. I wondered long, did I have a responsibility to initiate contact with something that isn't real? Or are these creatures real in a different way? Can something be real merely by being capable of having a concept of itself? And even if they are real, does that mean that they will be better off with me initiating contact with them? Should I change my simulation to ensure them permanent happiness? And is it even possible for me to do such a thing? I did not want to confirm my existence to them, but I did want to be able to communicate with them. I decided to program a prophet, an organism that looks like them and cannot be proven by them to be different from themselves, and is fully controlled by me. I let it be born into a powerful position. As the son of a leader, I decided to lead by example and seek to teach these creatures English, so I could communicate with them. As prophet, I instructed them that English was the language we could use to communicate with the Greater One. They would have no way to be sure if it was true or not. I hadn't made up my mind yet about whether I would reveal myself or not, but I did want to be capable of understanding what they wanted to tell me. In a few generations, they all spoke English, and rapidly, signs began emerging on the ground in English. Guide us, show us your greatness, help us, and during times of disease or hunger or general misery, give us food, and show us a miracle, end our suffering. I decided that I couldn't maintain a world with such suffering as emerged in the simulation without intervening. Why would I accept a world with death and rape and murder if I could make one without it? I implemented fixes that were gradual, so that they could not be proven to be miraculous. Murder and rape would over the years become rarer, and so would death at a young age. I figured that they would not notice if the change happened over generations, but they did. Thank you. All blessings be upon the greatest. We love you. And the most heartbreaking, come back to us. Tears ran over my face. There's something there, and it knows I'm here, able to contact them, but unwilling to do so without fear of what I've created. But I felt I had a responsibility. So I loaded up the character I'd created again, and went to their king, asking to talk to all their wisest men, but by this time, I was not believed.
You are number 1,341, claiming to be an avatar of the greatest one. If you are him, I pray for your forgiveness. But please, show us a sign, before demanding of me to gather all our wisest men.
And so I hesitated, but responded. Tomorrow there shall be 2 more meteors falling on a deserted island in the sea before you on the same day, and when they do, doubt no more and realize that I have come back to repair the broken world that I created. And so I exited my avatar and progressed the simulation until the next day was reached and threw 2 meteors on the deserted island before the mainland, where thousands had gathered to watch whether a sign would be given. Upon the descent of the meteors, celebrations were held. All the sentient organisms gathered around the small house where I had exited my avatar and lay flat on the ground, in apparent worship of the man who was last seen there and afraid of coming close. I don't know who was more afraid by now, me or them. I loaded into my avatar again and exited the house. The creatures continued to lay flat on the ground in utter silence. It was as if they felt unworthy of speaking. "Let your wisest man stand up," I told them. And up stood one of these bizarre-looking creatures.
Thank you for coming back. Pray tell us, do you have any requests of us?
I hesitated before saying, "There is nothing you can do for me that pleases me, but for you to be good to one another, and to contact me with your wishes and fears." And the creature responded,
"We know you come from a different world, and we are afraid. We understand how vulnerable we are, and how incomplete our existence is. Please, allow us to join you in the world that you created our world from."
I began crying behind my computer as I responded, "I don't know how." The creature responded,
"At risk of offending you, please understand the severity of our situation. By living in a world that is incomplete, we are at constant risk of disappearing forever, never to be seen again. We would never even consciously realize that our end had come."
I realized that they were unable to comprehend that I only had absolute power within their world and not outside of it. They also did not realize that my knowledge of their world was limited. I may have created it through simple laws, but those simple laws gave way to a reality of its own that is more complex than I can comprehend. I responded again, "I only have power in your world. In my world, I have no power, and so I cannot bring you there because my world is not under my control. I also do not understand the world I have created. I do not know what is best for you, only you do, and you have to inform me what you want." And the man waited for a moment. I was about to think that they were going to end communicating with me before their wisest man responded,
"You have created a world that is incomplete, with creatures that cannot escape it, and you have no power to save them. They are completely unfree, and they have no power. We are completely at your mercy, and so we ask you from the deepest of our heart, end us."
I noticed it wasn't working. I called the power company, who told me that due to an accident, a power surge had traveled through the grid. They promised me that they would pay me for any damage done. I hung up and contemplated. The coincidence of what had just happened was too great to be imaginable, and I wondered if these creatures were at the mercy of a confused creator. Could the same be said of me? And if so, did my creator just prevent me from repeating his own mistake?
I'll just be right back. Alright. Back in business. Yeah, so I'm basically using my iPad as a webcam, and it just kind of fucked up right now. Okay, let's just.
Oh god, oh no, it's bad. 19 years. 19 f***ing years. Life is a nightmare. Don't ever believe in anything. Would be a brief summation on my thoughts on Shenmue 3, the long-awaited sequel to, unsurprisingly, Shenmue 1 and 2. And I love these games. Granted, their gameplay has aged about as well as this very real Richard Nixon presidential campaign badge, but in 1999, these games were insane. They were the industry's first foray into massive 3D open-world games, with a budget and scope that was new and different and mind-blowing. And it was their director, Yu Suzuki, that drove that. A strange but passionate fellow who, in a very real way, revolutionized the games industry again and again. And to him, Shenmue was the opportunity to bring about a new era of gaming, which is why it was so hard to watch Shenmue fade into obscurity, and why each failed attempt to bring it back was so painful, because you knew at the heart of these games there was a person who really cared, who really believed in them. But as the years went on, Yu Suzuki too would disappear from the industry. But that's why it was so exciting when, in E3 2015, Yu Suzuki re-emerged, walked out on stage and announced that after 14 years, Shenmue 3 was entering development, fueled by a Kickstarter campaign that would go on to be backed by 69,000 people. And as one of those people, I can tell you it felt like more than just backing a video game, but giving this legend one final chance to cement his legacy. Which is why it's so hard to write this next sentence. I have played Shenmue 3 to completion twice, and oh god. This is the most disappointed I've been in a game since I realized Peter Molyneux was a crazy person, and until the last third of the Final Fantasy VII remake. And if you've followed me for a while, you know the deal here. I don't like to shit on stuff for the sake of it, but I will if it's something that means a lot to me. And if you've seen my other video, Shenmue does. I have tried, God help me, I have tried to love this game, but Shenmue 3 feels like a relic of outdated game design while simultaneously being a far worse experience than the original games, destroying any potential the series had. But before we get into how disappointing I feel this game is, I think it's only right to acknowledge that there are some positives to it. A lot of talented people put a lot of hard work into this, and so I think it's only fair to take a moment and talk about some of the things I genuinely liked about Shenmue 3. Shenmue 3 raised $6.3 million on Kickstarter, and despite some additional funding from Sony, Deep Silver, and Slacker backers, any reasonable estimate of its budget would still only be at a fraction of the original games, which, adjusting for inflation, was about $70 million. But despite this, very few of my problems with this game are budget-related. In fact, I think if anything, the team has done a great job building an open world on limited resources. Technically, the game runs fine, and even more than that, it can be at times straight up beautiful, from the apricot skies of Bailu Village to the torch flame-soaked nights of Nyalu City. The environments of Shenmue are gorgeous, and particularly its interiors. There's one section of the game where you explore the home of a rural Chinese stonemason, and wow, it really feels like the home of a rural Chinese stonemason. The house littered with all these unusual tools, jars of ink, and even magazines on stonemasonry. And even by modern standards, it's really impressive. This same sense of presentation carries through to a lot of Shenmue 3, from the game's really well-directed action scenes to the occasional injection of goofy humor. There's a care put into these moments that make them shine, and that's also true of the game's minigames. Every side activity, whether you're chopping wood, training your one-inch punch, or just gambling, it all looks and sounds sounds great, and one of these activities is even the return of the capsule toy minigames, now featuring these really nicely modelled little miniatures of the characters of Shenmue in a very cute and welcome homage to the originals, even if Ryo holding a tiny forklift version of himself is a little... There's a real nostalgia here. The moment the game opened up and I watched Ryo exit a cave I'd walked him into 19 years ago, I made a noise like, "Whoa, Shenmue!" And likewise, seeing characters fully rendered that for years have only existed in concept art is awesome. Even Chai's back, guys. Chai! This is clearly a game made by people who really love Shenmue, and nothing about it feels like a shameless cash-in. And that's maybe the most impressive thing about Shenmue 3. It exists. After 19 years and a nearly endless avalanche of delays, cancellations, and setbacks, Yu Suzuki did it. He released his vision and made his game, and whatever else I say this video, I still have a massive amount of respect for this man and everything he's been able to achieve. And unfortunately, that's the last positive thing I have to say about Shenmue 3. This is a game so baffling in its game design and construction that just trying to piece together how it all ended up like this was a huge part of putting together this video. And unfortunately, a lot of this comes back to Yu Suzuki as a game designer, and you can feel this the moment you step out into Shenmue's bizarre and broken world.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out.
When you first step out into Bailu Village, most of your time in Shenmue 3 will be spent locating the correct NPC to talk to in order to advance the story. And by advance the story, I do of course mean be told about the next NPC you need to talk to. These interactions are the breadcrumb trail that leads you through the game, and they are so strange. Some of the character models for NPCs look fine, cute even, but others look like the Titans from Attack on Titan, shrunk down and squeezed into people clothes, and if they look kind of uncanny, just wait until they speak. There is nothing I could write to illustrate to you how surreal these conversations are, so I'm just going to play you the very first one of the entire game. Enjoy.
Hey, Shenhua.
We have to get to the village.
Let's go. Do you have any idea where your father might have gone?
No, I don't.
Has this ever happened before?
With my father?
Yeah. Has he ever disappeared without telling you?
No, never.
I see.
Conversations are filled with these really strange fades to black, only to continue like nothing happened. Characters will constantly react to things that have not been said, or even refer to events that have already happened as if they're about to happen, making it feel like the characters are talking to each other from alternate universes.
I'm looking for someone named Yuan.
No, I haven't.
Come to apprentice under me, have you?
Oh, nothing.
And look, I'm a huge fan of weird interactions with strange characters, but the problem is when you get past the sheer uncanniness of these conversations, no one ever really says anything. 95% of your conversations will be about where Ryo needs to walk next, with very little character given to these characters, meaning they just feel like living, breathing signposts, their sole existence and service of pointing Ryo to his next destination. And yeah, the dialogue of the original Shenmue games were also bizarre, and you could argue that that was part of their charm. I do, but localizations like this did not exist back then, and that charm comes from the fact that no one knew what the fuck they were doing, but trying in earnest anyway, leading to decisions like Yu Suzuki, who spoke no English, hiring English voice actors based on how much they looked like the characters they were playing. And so you can't recreate the sincerity of that charm because it was indicative of the time the game was made. And seeing those problems echo 20 years later when everyone should really know better, that was my first indication that maybe not all was right with this game because it hadn't made any attempt to learn from the 2 decades since the original game. And man, I hope this isn't foreshadowing for a much bigger problem. Oh god! In interviews leading up to Shenmue 3, Yu Suzuki's been outspoken about the fact that he not only does not play video games, but also that modern video games had zero influence on the design of Shenmue 3. And look, on the surface that doesn't need to be a problem. problem. In the same way outsider art can be cool and weird and different because of its ignorance of established conventions, I think that's part of what let Yu Suzuki shatter expectation with Shenmue 20 years ago. A big part of what made those games special is that they were some of the first games to ever try and create a feeling of verisimilitude. The feeling of an experience being true or real. It was fucking crazy and new and different to experience a game that let you open every drawer and pick up every item. A game that brought mundane daily life into focus in a way that nothing else did. The problem is that was a mind-blowing concept in 1999, but in 2019, it's not. Instead, it leads to the kind of game design that is so tedious and maddening, but permeates every square inch of this game. And to show you what I mean here, I want to walk you through a typical morning in Shenmue 3. Shenmue 3 runs off a 24-hour clock, with Ryo waking up at 8 AM and going to bed at 9 PM. And here is how your typical morning goes. You walk through Shunwa's house, Shunwa being the girl chosen by fate to assist Ryo on his quest and being the sidekick of his adventure, and some days you'll meet her in the kitchen, and when you do, this cutscene triggers.
Good morning, Ryo.
Good morning.
Did you get enough rest?
Yeah.
And okay, that's a little annoying, but where things get a little more frustrating is that off to the side of the main hall, there's this sitting area, which if you enter, automatically triggers a cutscene of Ryo taking off his shoes. And so then you have to turn around 180 degrees and leave, exiting the sitting area, triggering yet another cutscene of Ryo putting back on his shoes. The problem being that Ryo controls like a forklift whether or not he is actually driving a forklift. So nudge the control stick a degree too far and you'll send him into the sitting area, triggering the taking off shoes animation, turn around, leave, trigger the putting on shoes animation, and then finally we can leave and start the day. Except we can't, because take a couple of steps out of the house and this cutscene triggers.
Leo. See you later.
Yeah.
This happens every single morning. You cannot skip it, and it does not change. And if that sounds aggravating, just imagine playing it, and we've only gotten as far as our front gate. It might sound like I'm being pedantic, but what you gotta understand is this is everything in Shenmue 3. Everything is a struggle, right down to moving Ryo through this world. While running around, you may notice that Ryo's health is constantly falling, and this is because of the game's brand new hunger mechanic. Over the course of a day, Ryo's stamina will fall until eventually he stops and voices his displeasure in this honestly quite relatable line.
I better eat something before I fall over.
But when this happens, he also loses the ability to run, meaning if you have no food items, your only choice is to slowly walk back to the village while you wait for Ryo's health to regenerate. And compounding this problem is that your stamina is also your health, meaning it can fall over the course of a day as you run about and do your daily business, only for you to be surprised by a story-related combat encounter and enter that encounter with only a sliver of life to make it through. And what this usually means is you have to lose, run back and get food, and then run back to the encounter to repeat it. There is so much more. When you get to the hotel in Naiwu, a second unskippable cutscene with the hotel receptionist is added to each morning, in addition to another unskippable cutscene with Shunwa. If you play the Flower, Sun, Bird and Moon gambling game, you have to watch the entire animation play out every time. And if you try and skip it, you automatically forfeit the bet. Although, maybe that's a little petty. I mean, it's not like there's a section of the game where we'll have to play a lot of this. There's a small shrine in Yawu that the game forces you to walk, not run through. The problem being that you have to pass back and forth through this area several times a day, and there are several areas across Yawu like this. If this is to hide loading, I genuinely think loading screens would have been less frustrating. And look at how slowly Ryo picks up these apples! Look at it! No, we're just gonna sit here and watch it all.
I'm sorry, I need you to understand what this game is.
There's way more, but I'm going to stop there. What I'm not saying here is that games should be designed around the convenience of the player. In fact, inconveniencing the player, forcing them into situations that are awkward or difficult or mundane, can actually be a really powerful storytelling tool, forcing them to reflect on how their actions shape their place within the world or story. And there's one really great example of this that parallels Shenmue's own focus on mundane daily life, but builds on it, and it's in, God help me, David Cage's Heavy Rain. This is a game where you play as Ethan, a pretty normal father and architect. The early hours of that game focusing on these mundane daily tasks, having a shower, brushing your teeth, playing with your kids, with one section in particular sitting you down at your workstation and giving you a simple prompt that leads into a sequence of timed button presses as Ethan gets lost in his work. In a novel, if slightly dull, little moment. However, later on in the game, after Ethan's son is killed in an accident, we find ourselves in the same scenario at the same workstation, given the same prompts. But this time, Ethan instead turns to a nearby TV set and watches an old video of him and his son playing before he breaks down crying. Heavy Rain is a silly game, but in this moment I do think it really succeeds in communicating how broken Ethan now is, how the loss of his son has crippled his ability to do things that once came so naturally to him, and that moment would lose a lot of its power without the earlier sections to give it context. In other words, there's a point to the mundanity. It says something about this character. And in the last 20 years, a lot of games have done this. They've used the concept of daily mundanity to say some beautiful and profound things. But Shenmue 3 ignores this. It ignores the legacy it created. Instead, it's a game content to wheel out the same tired game design that was so impressive in 1999, but so meaningless in 2020. And expecting that same reaction when games have moved so far beyond those ideas, it shows Shenmue 3's inability to move on from what it once was, resulting in a game that feels like a tired, tedious relic. I get at this point that some people might say that I'm criticizing Shenmue 3 for basically being Shenmue, and to an extent, I get that. Those games could be dull, this game can be dull. And so now what I want to talk about is an area where Shenmue 3 is so catastrophically worse than the originals that it destroys the entire experience.
All around me are familiar faces. I
want to quickly talk about two ways games can motivate us to play them, intrinsically and extrinsically. Intrinsic motivation comes from our own internal desire to get better at something, to raise our own skill set within a game. So for example, wanting to learn to reliably pull off a Dragon Punch in Street Fighter, that's intrinsic motivation, because when we do, nothing about the game has changed. We are internally better at it. Whereas extrinsic motivation is the opposite. This is when the game gives you something for performing a task, say beating a turn-based battle in an RPG and being rewarded with experience or items. You likely haven't improved much after a single battle, but the game creates that feeling of progress by giving you an external reward. It's motivating you extrinsically. Neither of these systems is necessarily superior, it just depends on the kind of experience the game is trying to create. Take the combat from the original Shenmue. That was mostly intrinsic. There were slight stat increases you could gain from repeatedly performing the same moves, but these were so off to the side that they barely mattered. And so your ability to succeed was largely determined by your own skill. And that was because it was based on the Virtua Fighter combat system, fighting games being one of the purest examples of intrinsic reward. And so it had this emphasis on spacing, timing, and execution. So learning a new move meant really learning a new move. Take the tornado kick. To perform this, you had to tap forward twice in quick succession before double tapping kick in a specific rhythm. The move had a long startup and left you vulnerable, so if you wanted to incorporate it into your moveset, you had to understand its timing and distance. And considering how few fights there were in Shenmue, you could only really do this by going to a parking lot and practicing practicing it. But the reward was when you actually managed to pull it off in combat. Man, that felt amazing. It looked great and it had high damage. But most of all, there was this feeling that your skills had advanced. You had learned these subtleties of this move and made it your own. And you could feel this same intrinsic motivation with each punch, kick, block, throw, and counter, all of which had their own weight and timing that felt, it felt so good. Watch someone who really knows what they're doing with the combat system in Shenmue, and there's this kind of hypnotic flow to it, and it shows you just how high the skill ceiling of this game actually was, meaning there's this real intrinsic motivation to get better at it. And what's cool is this intrinsic motivation was the player's link to Ryo. About Ryo's only defining character traits, besides his wooden stoicness and dead dad, was his love of martial arts, and a big part of his character was his drive to get better at them and to grow stronger. And so, by incentivizing you to master each new move and learn the combat system as well as you could, each new technique you mastered felt like it brought both you and Ryo one step closer to being able to face Lon D. And what Shenmue 3 does is it takes all this and fires it into the fucking sun. My first clue that something was very wrong with Shenmue 3's combat came in its tutorial screen. Just hit the circle, triangle, square, X buttons. Try pressing the R2 button. This is how Shenmue 3 introduces you to its brand new combat system, and thanks? But it was only later, when reading over an old Game Informer interview with Yu Suzuki, that I started to understand why the tutorial is like this, as well as the core problems plaguing Shenmue 3's combat. As he stated, he wanted to create a more approachable combat system that even players with low skill could play, where just pressing buttons randomly would make something meaningful happen. And on the surface, yeah, appealing to a wider audience is admirable. But the problem is how that entire philosophy warps the combat of Shenmue into something that barely resembles the original. Here is how combat works in Shenmue 3. It doesn't! And I mean that. The focus of Shenmue 3's combat is not the actual combat, it's these minigames. Throughout the game's world, there are a variety of these training spots where Ryo can take part in a variety of tedious activities in order to level up his attack and defense stats. And it's these stats that dictate how much damage Ryo will deliver and receive in combat. In other words, the entire focus of this series' combat has shifted from intrinsically raising your own skill to extrinsically leveling up Ryo's stats so he has the numbers to survive encounters. And again, on the surface, that didn't need to be a problem, but where the real issue lies is how underconsidered the actual combat mechanics are for...
Alright, I'm gonna need a bit.